In this video, we're once again exploring 3 chilling stories of people who ventured into the Appalachian Mountains during the month of October and experienced truly terrifying moments. The first story left me genuinely unsure of what to think. If you have any idea of what might have happened, let me know in the comments. And the last one really made me reflect on how differently we all react when faced with danger. Thank you so much for being here and for choosing to support this channel. I truly hope you enjoy this video as much as I enjoyed reading and putting these stories together. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's head back into the mountains. And remember, viewer discretion is advised. Alright, so what I'm about to tell you went down at the start of this October. And yeah, it's still technically under investigation. But I need to get it off my chest. And maybe warn people too. Because honestly, what happened to me and my friends was so damn bizarre that I keep thinking someone out there must have heard about something like this before. Maybe they can help make sense of it. 'Cause we sure can't. So, between the end of September and the first week of October, like September 28th to October 5th, my friends and I had this whole plan. A few hikes and a camping trip near Fontana Lake in North Carolina. It's that big, quiet lake surrounded by the Smokies, and the Appalachian Trail actually crosses the dam. We'd done a bunch of hikes together before, but always around West Virginia, where we're all from. This time, we wanted something new. Carla, one of the girls in our group, her birthday's October 3rd, and somehow all 7 of us managed to get that week off work. Which, if you're near 30, you know is basically a miracle. So, it felt like the stars were kinda aligning, you know? We were all hyped, talking about how we'd finally unplug for a few days. No phones, no emails, just nature, quiet, and catching up like old times. We met up at Liam's place on the 27th, loaded 2 cars with all our gear, snacks, way too many flashlights, and hit the road. The whole first day was just about getting to the lake before dark. I remember thinking, there's no way we'll make it before sunset. Everyone hikes at different speeds, and we hadn't all been together in almost a year. So, of course, there were breaks every 10 minutes just to talk or laugh or mess around. But somehow, we did make it before dark. Funny thing is, we'd read online, some Facebook group or maybe Reddit, I don't even remember, that the trail to the lake was tough. Steep climbs, rough descents, all that. But it wasn't. It was actually kinda easy. Mostly flat and crazy beautiful. Like the trees were turning gold and orange. That crisp autumn air that just makes you feel alive. When we finally got to the lake, we set up our tents and just stood there for a while. Not even talking. Just soaking it all in. That night, we made dinner together. Went for a little walk to check out the area, trying to see if there were other campers around. We figured we'd at least run into someone, but nope. Not a soul. We went back to camp, hung out by the fire for a bit. Some of the group stayed up talking and drinking, but I was exhausted. I'd barely slept the night before, so I crashed early. Slept like a rock, actually. Woke up to the sunlight hitting the tent and felt amazing. Like, yeah, this is exactly what I needed. The plan for that day was simple. Hike a bit more, find that spot by the lake everyone said was perfect for swimming. It was starting to get cooler, especially at night, with that thick fog rolling over the water. But during the day, it was still warm enough for a dip. That's when things got weird. Mia, she's one of my closest friends, pulled me aside and said she thought she saw someone standing between the trees, watching us. I looked over where she pointed, but there was nothing there. Still, she looked genuinely scared, like pale and shaky, not just joking around. So I told her I'd go check. I walked toward the trees, and at first, I didn't see anything either. But then I noticed a cigarette butt on the ground, still warm, and I could smell the smoke. Someone had been standing there, like just moments before. I went back and told everyone what Mia had seen, and what I found. The reactions were all over the place. A couple of them got freaked out right away. Liam started talking about setting up stick traps around the tents, which, honestly, was a little much. Carla, though, she just laughed it off. Said it was probably some random person passing through, maybe curious. "Come on, there's 7 of us," she said. "Nobody's gonna mess with a group this big." And she wasn't wrong, so I tried to shake it off too. But Mia couldn't. Liam either. She kept saying she didn't feel safe. And man, looking back now, I can't blame her. That night, we were all sitting around the fire again. And then we heard it. Movement coming from the same direction as before. Mia heard it too. It wasn't my imagination. I grabbed my flashlight, walked up to the tree line and called out, "Hey, is someone there?" Nothing. Just silence. So I figured, okay, must have been an animal or something, and went back to sit by the fire. One by one, everyone drifted off to their tents. I stayed up a bit longer though. Couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that cigarette. About the fact that we weren't as alone as we thought. Around 3 a.m., I heard more noises out there. Different directions this time. But I forced myself to ignore it. Told myself it was just the forest doing its thing. Then, around 4:30, I woke up to a scream. Carla's scream. I checked my watch, grabbed the knife I keep next to me, but as soon as I touched the zipper to get out of the tent, my hand just stopped working. My strength vanished. My fingers went numb. The knife slipped from my hand. My vision went blurry and then nothing. Black. Next thing I know, the sun's up. Liam's sitting nearby, looking dazed, like he's been hit by a truck. That's when I realized I wasn't in my tent anymore. I was lying outside, on the ground. Tried to get up, but the world was spinning, my head pounding like someone had smashed it with a bat. And then I saw it. We weren't at our campsite anymore. All our stuff was gone. We were all lying in this open space, completely naked, covered only by these red sheets, arranged in a circle. In the middle, another sheet, darker, soaked in what looked like blood. We started shaking each other awake, panicking, crying, trying to figure out what the hell had happened. Nobody remembered anything. Nothing. It took us hours to find our campsite again. And when we finally did, everything was there. Untouched. Like nothing had happened. Liam had brought this satellite phone, so we called the police. They came. Took us to a hospital. We were tested, checked over. They said we'd all inhaled some kind of gas, but nothing else had been done to us. Physically, anyway. The cops think it might have been some kind of cult. They're still investigating, but we still don't know what happened that night. And honestly, that's the worst part. So this happened back in October 2012, up in the Appalachian Mountains, somewhere along the North Carolina side near Hot Springs. I don't want to be too specific because I still hike there sometimes, but I'll never camp in that area again. It was supposed to be a chill weekend. Just me, my cousin Jake, and our friend Tanner. We'd all grown up hiking together, and every fall we'd pick a new trail to camp out for a night or two. That year, the air was perfect. Cold enough for a hoodie, warm enough that you could sit around the fire without freezing. The leaves were that deep red gold color that makes the whole world look like it's on fire when the sun hits it. It's such a perfect time of year to go camping. We started late Friday and didn't make camp until near dusk. There was an old fire road we followed up the ridge and found this flat spot overlooking the valley. No cell service, no people, nothing. Just that quiet you only get deep in the woods, when even the wind sounds far away. Back then, satellite phones weren't really something you heard about, or at least we hadn't. So we didn't have one. We set up camp, got a fire going, made chili in one of those aluminum pots, cracked a few beers, all that. Jake pulled out a Bluetooth speaker, but after 10 minutes, he shut it off. Said it didn't sound right out there. I kinda got what he meant. You play music in a place like that, and it feels like you're breaking some rule. It's like the sounds of the forest are sacred, and you're just messing it up. We all agreed to turn off the music, and just enjoy what the forest and the trees were giving us. Around 11 p.m., Tanner said he saw a light moving across the ridge opposite us. It was small at first, like a flashlight bobbing through the trees. We all saw it. My first thought was hunters, or another group camping. But the light didn't move like a flashlight should. It wasn't swinging side to side. It just floated. Slow. Steady. Same height the whole time. That's probably not the best way to describe it, but I really don't know how else to say it. It moved in this totally steady, unnatural way. We joked about it being a ranger, or some dude walking alone. But after a few minutes, it stopped moving. Just sat there across the ridge, flickering a bit. At this point, it really looked like someone holding a light, and just staring right back at us. Jake yelled out, "Hey, you good over there?" But there was no response. Maybe we were too far for them to hear us from where the light was. Sometimes the wind changes how sound travels in the woods. Maybe that was it. We waited a minute, then two. The light didn't move. It didn't blink like a headlamp or flashlight should. I think Tanner got spooked first. He said it looked closer than before. I laughed, but when I looked again, I swear to God, it was closer. Not a lot, just a little lower on the ridge. But I'd been staring at it the whole time, and I could swear it hadn't moved. Once again, it didn't look like a movement a person would make. We all kind of went quiet after that. Nobody said we were scared, but I could feel it. That heaviness when your brain starts asking questions it doesn't want the answers to. Something that might be good to say is that we come from a part of West Virginia where there are a lot of superstitions, a lot of legends and stories about the Appalachians. When you grow up in that kind of environment, it's kind of impossible to believe everything's made up with no truth behind it. So, yeah. At this point, I gotta admit, we were all pretty scared. It's ridiculous to think about 3 dudes out in the woods getting freaked out over a light. But the setting was perfect for fear. And the light was weird. Unnatural. I swear if you'd been there, you'd understand what I mean. The light looked even closer than before. But then, out of nowhere, it just disappeared. Not seeing it was almost creepier than seeing it. But after a few good hours of not seeing or hearing anything weird, we admitted we'd been a bunch of wimps, cracked some jokes, and went to bed in our tents. Jake and I shared one. Tanner had his own about 10 feet away. The forest had its usual sounds: crickets, wind, small branches snapping. But at some point, it felt like those sounds were fading, like the forest itself was going to sleep. I couldn't fall asleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that light, just sitting there. I didn't get why something so small had freaked me out that much. I must have dozed off eventually because around 2 a.m., I woke up because I heard crunching. Slow footsteps in the leaves. I thought it was Tanner taking a leak. But then I realized it was coming from the other direction, downhill, from the ridge. I sat up, trying to listen better, trying to really figure out what I was hearing. Jake was already awake. He asked me if I'd heard it too, but I didn't even need to answer. He knew I had. The steps were slow and careful, like whoever it was didn't want to be heard. Then they stopped, and all I could hear was breathing, faint, just outside the tent. Jake unzipped the tent real slow and stuck his head out with the flashlight. But there was nothing there. Just the trees and the dark. I swear I smelled something though, like wet wool and sweat. Then Tanner whispered from his tent, "Yo, who's out there?" We heard this sudden movement from his tent, like he'd punched the fabric. Whoever it was, took off. Fast. You could hear the crunching of boots crashing through leaves, getting farther away. He immediately came out of his tent and told us someone had been touching his tent, breathing on him. Someone had pressed their face against the tent, and he'd just punched them. As you can probably guess, we didn't sleep after that. We sat up with our knives and the hatchet by the fire pit till the sky turned gray. When morning came, we saw prints, boot prints, big ones, leading right up to our tent, then Tanner's tent, circling it twice, and then heading back toward the ridge. But how the hell had we not seen anyone? Just felt it. Jake had literally stepped out to check, but there was nobody there. We packed up and left as soon as daylight hit. Ate a quick breakfast, and just started moving through the trees toward the car. I remember Tanner kept looking back every few minutes like he expected to see someone following us. When we got back to the trailhead, there was this old beat-up pickup parked next to Jake's car. Nobody inside. And honestly, it looked completely abandoned. It looked miserable, like it had been rotting there for years. But the truth is, when we parked the car, it hadn't been there. I don't know who that was, or what they wanted. Obviously, the pickup might have had nothing to do with whoever messed with us at the campsite. Could have been a hunter. Could have been some crazy dude living off the grid. But that steady light on the ridge, the way it just stared, that's burned into my memory. That's the part that creeps me out the most. Because I swear to everything, it didn't look natural. It looked like it was floating. But yeah, it was nighttime. We were scared, and maybe our minds were trying to make sense of things that weren't really there. The experience wasn't enough to make us stop hiking and camping, but it was enough to make us stop camping in that area and buy a whole set of safety gear, including this little alarm thing that goes off if someone gets too close to the campsite at night. October in the Appalachians is beautiful, and I'd never want to scare anyone away from that area. What I told you is more like proof that there are some crazy things out there, and not every story ends as well as mine. A lot of them don't, and a lot of them we never even hear about. So if you're heading out to that area or anywhere else remote, always be prepared and never go alone. This happened about 4 years ago, late October, I think, right before a storm came in. I'd been running on fumes from work and just needed some time away from people. So I packed up my old pickup and drove out toward the southern part of the Appalachians. Not the touristy side, but one of those back roads that eventually turns into dirt and starts to look more like a path than a road. You know the kind, where the GPS starts lagging and the signal drops to nothing. I'd marked a spot on the map that looked like it had a clearing near a river. Figured I'd hike in, set up camp, and just spend a few days off the grid. No plans, no phone, no noise. It was one of those moments in my life when I just needed my brain to shut off. Not thinking about all the things I had to do or the problems I had to solve. It sounded perfect at the time. I remember the drive being long and quiet. Uncomfortably quiet. That was another reason I was seeking silence. I'd always had a hard time being in silence, listening to what my mind had to say when the noise disappeared. Sometime before, I'd had a conversation with a friend who told me something that still bothers me to this day. If we want to be genuinely at peace with ourselves, we have to learn to listen to silence. Well, I had never learned to do that, so I was trying everything I could to figure it out. I finally reached the area where I was going to leave the car and started walking. The trees were half bare, and everything smelled like wet leaves and cold dirt. It was actually pretty pleasant, way more than I expected. Every once in a while, a gust of wind would roll through and shake more leaves down, and it would sound like footsteps somewhere behind you, even though you knew it wasn't. I figured I'd hike maybe an hour before setting up. But that turned into 3 because every spot I found felt wrong somehow. Too close to water, too open, too dead quiet. I could feel my anxiety creeping back, the need to avoid too much noise like by the water, but also not wanting to be somewhere so silent that I could hear my own breathing. It's weird how silence in the woods can feel heavy, like it's pressing down on you. I was really starting to doubt my decision to come there when I finally found a spot up on a rise above a small creek, flat enough to pitch a tent, and far enough from the trail that I couldn't see it anymore. I built a fire, heated up a can of food, and just sat there watching the light bounce off the trees. The moon was bright, but the shadows still looked thick and sharp. I don't know exactly when it started, but sometime after dinner I heard this strange sound. It wasn't an animal or the wind. At least it didn't seem like it. It was this slow, scraping metal sound, like someone dragging a shovel or a crowbar over rock. It came from somewhere near the creek. I froze, just listening, waiting for another noise, but it stopped after a few seconds. I told myself it was probably junk shifting in the current, or maybe a deer stepping on something, but it didn't sit right with me. As you've probably realized by now, I have a lot of anxiety, and even though I'd been hiking many times before, I'd never done it alone. I didn't hear anything else until I got into the tent. But even then, I barely slept that night. Every time I drifted off, I thought I heard footsteps outside. The thing is, when you're an anxious person, you kind of get used to people telling you that you're imagining things, that you're just overreacting, that it's your nerves talking. And honestly, a lot of times that's true. A lot of times the problems really are just in your head. The problem is that sometimes they're not, sometimes they're real. And the hardest part is learning to tell the difference between the two. Despite the anxiety, I dozed off here and there, and eventually the night passed. The next morning, the air felt colder and heavier. You could really tell the weather was changing. There was still about a week to go, but in 8 days there was supposed to be crazy wind and torrential rain. I got out of the tent and looked around. My fire pit looked disturbed, like something had stepped on it. Again, I tried not to overthink it. Made some coffee, and went walking upriver to clear my head. After about an hour, I came across this old shack tucked against the hillside. The roof had caved in, the door was missing, and it smelled like mold and rust. I figured it was an old hunting hut or something. But inside, there were fresh signs that someone had been there. A pile of cigarette butts, an empty can of beans that hadn't even rusted, and muddy boot prints. That's when it really hit me. Whoever had been staying there must have come the same way I had, which meant they'd passed near my camp, maybe even watched it. The sound from the creek, the disturbed dirt, it all lined up. It hadn't been just in my head, it was real. I went straight back to my tent, moving fast but trying not to look like I was running. Still, there wasn't really much reason to panic. The person could have just passed near my camp out of curiosity. Even so, it was terrifying to think that someone you don't know had been that close to you while you were at your most vulnerable. But when I got back to camp, I immediately knew something was wrong. The tent flap was open, and I knew I'd closed it. My bag had been moved around a bit. Everything was still there except my knife. I cursed myself automatically. I shouldn't have left the knife there. I should have had it on me. That was stupid. I started packing immediately. My hands were shaking so bad, I dropped things a few times, but I just kept going. That sense that someone's watching you, it's real, man, and it's awful. I got my gear together and started heading back toward the trail. But after a while, nothing looked right anymore. The trees all looked the same. The light was fading, and I couldn't even hear the creek. I knew that my anxiety and fear were stronger than my survival instincts at that point. I knew I needed to focus, calm down, and think clearly. I must have walked in circles for a long while before finally stumbling back onto the path, completely drained. I know that for someone who doesn't struggle with anxiety like I do, it might sound strange, not being able to stay focused in a dangerous situation, but that's just how it is. When I finally reached my truck, I just threw everything in the back and got the hell out. I know that person probably didn't mean me any harm. Maybe they were just some poor soul. But even so, it was a terrifying experience for me. I'm not doing anything like that again anytime soon. I'll try to get more comfortable with my silence, but from home.